Going on, everybody? Happy Thursday, Thirsty Thursday. Mean Streets here live on our FTN Network YouTube page and a Game Plus Network. Chris Meaney here with you. Thanks as always for taking the time to hang out. Riding solo here with you today. A lot to get to on the program. We are going to talk round 8 of NFFC high stakes leagues. Take a look at all the players that are going on average over the last 6 weeks over at NFFC, and then I have a fantasy football target for you. We are going to talk a lot of football here on this show. We're going to continue our NFL team previews, and we are moving over to the NFC South, and we're going to lead with what I think is still the best team, the team to beat inside the division, and one of the better teams in football. That's right. It is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tom Brady is back yet again. Rob Gronkowski is not, as of yet. He is gone, and he did say just recently, he said a couple things. If Brady were to call him, he still would say no. I don't officially buy that. And he did say if Julian Edelman came back with the Bucs, that he would guarantee a comeback Gronk. I don't think we're going to see Julian Edelman return, but we will go over the Bucs. Of course, they have a lot of fantasy assets. Tom Brady last year led the league in passing attempts, passing yards, passing touchdowns. It was so weird to hear him retire, and I just feel like the only reason he didn't officially retire is because other people said he was going to retire. It's like, guys, let him have his moment. He will tell everybody when he's going to retire. There was some reports that leaked. I don't know if that rubbed him the wrong way, but certainly he still has it, right? He definitely still has a lot to offer, no matter if Gronk returns or not. There's a lot of amazing weapons on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Russell Gage is now part of the squad. Leonard Fournette had a fantastic season last year. And we'll talk a little bit about Cameron Brate as well, as he's continuing to move up draft boards over the last 5 weeks. Of course, with the Gronk news, he was not even a factor in drafts. Nobody was really looking at him or talking about him. So just want to give you guys a little bit of an idea of where he's going in drafts. And I actually think it's a steal. I have him as a top 15 tight end. If he's linked to Tom Brady in this offense for the rest of the season, he could be a top 15 tight end. After the top 10, what are we looking at here? We're just looking at guys in good offenses that are going to get targeted inside the red zone, and I think we'll see that here this season with Cam Brate. So we'll talk about him in a little bit. We'll talk NHL free agency and trades. Yesterday was a wild day in the NHL, and the last night finished off with just a shocking turn of events. Johnny Gaudreau to the Columbus Blue Jackets? What? What? Apparently he's got family in the Jersey, Philadelphia area. Like, he's from that area. Philly can't afford to sign him. Reports suggested that, Pierre LeBrun had said that the offer was close to 10. There's some other reports out there well north of 10 that the Devils offered Johnny Gaudreau. Of course, we do know that the Flames offered him a healthy contract with that extra year, 8 years. He signs a 7-year deal with the Columbus Blue Jackets last night. I just don't understand why. And it's not do whatever you want to do, Johnny, obviously. Like, you're in the NHL. You can go wherever you want. Sounds like he left a lot of money on the table to go to a team that is not even going to sniff the playoffs. I'm sorry, Troy Nork, if you're hanging out with me, not even going to sniff the playoffs, the Columbus Blue Jackets, but we'll talk about all that. Still some big names out there, Nazem Kadri, John Klingberg. It's not like this is a different free agency. Johnny Hockey was definitely the ultimate prize. Other than that, there's just like not a lot of huge names. Claude Giroux, of course, went. I love what the Senators are doing. I love what the Red Wings are doing. These two teams that are starting to be on the rise. And if you're a Canadiens fan, you got to feel good about other teams in the Atlantic, getting better, teams in the East getting better, because you want the number 1 overall pick again and get Bedard, who is a game changer, and the Canadiens were quiet. They didn't do anything yesterday. So we'll touch on some of the moves. Another big shocking move was Max Pacioretty getting flipped to the Carolina Hurricanes. I think the biggest thing was that he just went for nothing. Like, he was just a salary dump. And speaking of the Canadiens, just a few years ago, Mark Bergevin's biggest trades, PK Subban for Shea Weber, Max Pacioretty, they got Tatar, they got a second-round pick, and Nick Suzuki in return. And both of those guys just salary dumps a few years after. And Subban, who was flipped to New Jersey for nothing, and then Max Pacioretty yesterday flipped to Carolina for nothing, as the Vegas Golden Knights continue to just try to shed salary cap after acquiring Jack Eichel. They've really let a lot of good players go over the past couple seasons. So Vegas' best goal scorer, Max Pacioretty, he is gone, and it's a good get for Carolina because they definitely needed some more offensive firepower, and they acquired Brent Burns as well. So they were busy, not so much in the free agency landscape, but they were making some moves as well. Canes look strong. They really do look strong, George. Joshua Frick in the house. Where's Meaney? Right here. Dude, thanks for taking the time to hang out. Other things we have today for the show, MLB Props, MLB Picks, of course. We are going to recap the first few rounds of the Scott Fish Bowl. We talked about it the other day. Just the first couple rounds, I want to give you guys a little bit of an update. I heard some nice things from Joshua Frick and some things he'd like to see on this show, maybe some slow drafts, and kind of dive into some of those picks. And I think we can kind of do that here with the Scott Fish Bowl, and we will continue to do best ball drafts, maybe some slow drafts where I can go over some picks. But we have talked a lot about a few drafts that I've been in. I don't know if anybody out there really wants to hear about my fantasy squad. Nobody wants to hear about your fantasy team, but I've been trying to show you guys just early drafts and just seeing where certain players are going. You know, some of the ones I've shown you, the Scott Fish Bowl is a little bit different, of course. It's you want to stack and you roll 2 quarterbacks as tight end premium. The Sirius XM Independence Day draft that I showed you guys last week with Mick and Howard when they joined me, same kind of deal. It's not super flex, but it's 2 tight ends that you start and they go a little bit early. So I'm trying to show you guys different drafts. Maybe we can do maybe we do a Mean Streets Listener League draft where we can all get together. We'll get producer Tyler and our guy George here running graphics for us. Maybe everyone can get together and we can do a bit of a slow draft or a best ball draft, and we can break down that draft as well. Something like that. Live analysis over threads. Love it. There was something else I think I wanted to get to here today. Well, let's talk Open. We still have this promo going on. The Open Championship got underway this morning, I believe at 1 Eastern. Tigers off to a little bit of a rough start here. We do have Cam Young at 800, Rory at 600, Cam Smith at 600. I do have shares of Rory and Cam here this weekend, so I'm pretty excited about the start. But you see promo code OPEN150 will get you $150 off over at FTN Daily or FTN Bets. If you're a big DFS player, that would, that's right up your alley. If you're a big betting person, up your alley as well. FTN Bets, we have links inside the description of this video bringing you over there, but Open 150 will save yourself a little bit of cash. And just a friendly reminder that the betting package, you get all the picks across all the sports from everybody. Josh Gross is got to be one of the best bettors I think I've ever seen in my life. Honestly, I got to get him on the show. It's tough. He's a super busy guy. I think we have something in the works for him over at FTN. That guy's up like 200 plus units in tennis. He's amazing around the diamond. He's winning like 5 or 6 units every night. He's a big NBA bettor. Of course, the NBA season is over, but he'll be here before you know it. And he's all over it when it comes to NFL as well. It's worth it just to get his picks, honestly. But you will get mine included in there. And, I know I give a lot here on the show for free, but a lot of other people, MLB Dream, Frank Brank, Kyle Murray's killing it as well on the MLB side of things. And then you get all the PGA guys. I think the guys are all on Gooch. Jones, DeCourte, and Blickel. Bogey Free is a free show for you to check out here on our FTN Network YouTube page. And a lot of the content was free, and they'll be with you throughout the entire Open, giving you guys showdown plays, live betting, of course, some matchup bets as well. And inside that betting package, you not only get all the picks, but you get the Discord channel across all the sports, some projections, and some tools available for you as well. That's it for the opening block. That is it. We are going to take a bit of a break. We're going to get the NHL stuff out of the way, and then we are going to turn our attention over to football. Yeah, Zach is crushing Summer League. Absolutely, man. Zach, a.k.a. Quisenberg DFS, is another sharp dude, another sharp guy. He's one of the best NBA DFS players in the game. He just breaks down the game of basketball so well. We had him on the show after the NBA draft to break down, some of the moves. And what did he talk about? Chet Holmgren. And then he went off in his first Summer League game. And I think his Rookie of the Year odds went from like 5-1 or 4-1 to like plus 250. And he did come on the show and said Chet was the guy. Like, he would have taken him 1 overall. He was most excited about his outlook from a redraft standpoint, from a keeper and a dynasty league standpoint, and also a DFS standpoint. Zach is the man. Absolutely, Joshua. He is crushing Summer League DFS. You can catch it all over at FTN Network. If you're hanging out with us live, smash the like button. Any comments, any questions, you can leave them there. If you have a comment and a question you're watching on Game Plus Network or listening on iTunes, you can always hop on over at our FTN Network YouTube page, and please subscribe. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to dive into what the heck Johnny Gaudreau was thinking and a couple other big names who are now in new environments. Old faces and new places. We'll talk about that next here on Mean Streets. Welcome back in. There was one thing I wanted to talk off the opening block, and you guys are probably sick of me talking about it, so I'll save it for the MLB side of things. It was Shohei Ohtani. I mean, he was at it again last night. It's the lone bright spot for the Halos, but he just continues to light the world on fire. We'll give him a little bit more love as he punched out 12 Astros last night and finally gave up a run, but it was just one earned run. We'll talk about him a little bit later on. I want to talk to you guys about just some of the NHL moves. And we'll keep an eye on absolutely everything here throughout the day. If anything does, break, we can talk about that and we could recap maybe next week. I think we're going to get the Eric Young on tomorrow. Of course, my co-host from Dangle Badselli and those over at Game Plus Network are well aware of Eric Young, of course. But maybe we can get his thoughts. He's pretty excited about what the Ottawa Senators have done over the last 24 to 48 hours. They were busy in the trade market and yesterday through NHL Free Agency. But the biggest move of all, we were all waiting for it. Everybody's waiting for it. Johnny Gaudreau, a couple of days ago, he had said that he was going to leave Calgary and wasn't going to re-sign with the Flames. And that's a huge blow. It's really tough. A lot of the names that you're about to see on this list were unrestricted free agents, of course, and they were either dealt at the trade deadline or, hung on to, and it's really tough. I mean, if you're in the Flame situation, you didn't want to trade Johnny Gaudreau. You had aspirations to win the Stanley Cup. You were one of the better teams in the entire league. You were really rolling. You just hope that you kept them, and now you lost them for nothing. It is a bit of a tough blow. Let's bring up the board. He decided to sign with the Columbus Blue Jackets of all teams, a 7-year, $68 million deal. And the quote here from The Athletic, hopefully we'll get the Columbus Blue Jackets goal cannon really blasting this season. Johnny Gaudreau shocked the NHL by signing with the Blue Jackets yesterday, and he talked to The Athletic about his choice. This is a real quote. They've always had great crowds really into the game. I said to myself then, this looks like a really fun place to play. Dude, I love the cannon too. Going to Columbus is one of my, it's on the bucket list. I'd like to go. It does look like a really fun environment, especially when they were making the playoffs. When they swept the Tampa Bay Lightning a few years ago, it really did look fantastic. And they beat the Leafs after that in the bubble. And that's not why you're there, right? The cannon? It can't be why you signed a contract there. It's the cannon and the crowds, dude. New Jersey has so many nice young pieces. That would have been a really good fit for him. Maybe he didn't want to be in a Canadian environment. He certainly, and this is no disrespect to the Blue Jackets fans and Blue Jackets Nation. Seriously, don't come at me with that already. Troy is one of my, we really respect Troy here on the show. He's a big Blue Jackets fan. I'm sure he's ecstatic. All fans should be really pumped up. They got Johnny Hockey. He had a league high 72 points at 5-5 last year. Nobody had more points at 5-5 than him, and it was a pretty decent gap. I think he had like 8 more than Austin Matthews had 66. So he's a really good player, and you're getting a really good player, but I don't believe the Blue Jackets are anywhere close to sniffing the playoffs. I don't believe it at all. I think a better spot for him, potentially New Jersey. I don't know if he's just going to Columbus, not hearing the noise and the pressure. You can just go play hockey. Certainly, you're under a microscope every night in Canada and in Calgary. You just really are. And I don't want to say that more people care about hockey in Calgary than Columbus. I'm not here to say that as well. It's just a very, very surprising signing, but good for the Blue Jackets. Ultimately, from a fantasy hockey standpoint, Gaudreau's going to come down. Like, he's going to drop down overall in terms of just value. I mean, he had last year 115 points, which is the second most in the NHL. He was tied with Huberdeau, and McDavid had 123. It was one of the better lines in the league in Calgary. It was one of the better lines in the league with Elias Lindholm and Matthew Tkachuk. They were all fantastic. They were all like plus 200 basically combined. And I don't like to get into plus minus, but when you see something like that, I mean, it jumps off at the page. It just jumps out at you. How fantastic they were as a trio at 5-5. But now he's going to Columbus. His line mates are not going to be as great. We can uptick Zach Werenski. We can uptick Patrick Laine. Is Laine going to be part of the future plans? Like, Johnny didn't really break the bank there. There's some reports that they offered $12 million. He probably should have taken that $12 million as opposed to jumping down and getting the sub 10 that he got from the Blue Jackets. But, if I'm looking at it, if he's going to play with Jack Roslovic, if he's going to play with Laine, like, those are guys that are, you uptick them a little bit. But overall, Johnny Hockey, if he stayed with the Flames, he'd be a first-round pick. And I don't know if he's worthy of a first-round pick. Evan says Ottawa won yesterday. Man, Ottawa won over the past week or so with the addition of Alex DeBrincat. Then they get Matt Murray off the books. They acquire Cam Talbot And then they signed Claude Giroux yesterday, who's from the area as well. Let's bring up that board one more time here, Tyler, and roll through some of these names. Claude Giroux. How about the Detroit Red Wings? David Perron, Andrew Kopp, Dominic Kubalik. I mean, Chicago is clearly tanking. They want to give a qualifying offer to Dominic Kubalik, who I believe scored like 20-plus goals as a rookie, and a nice buy low there for the Red Wings. Vincent Trocheck leaves Carolina, goes to the Rangers, who last year they had Ryan Strome as their second center. Now he is a member of the Anaheim Ducks. Frank Vatrano had a nice moment with the Rangers. At the deadline, they acquired him. He was really strong into the playoffs as well. So a couple players to go play in Anaheim with the Ducks. Of course, they got a young squad there led by Trevor Zegras. Andre Palat, I think this is a little bit of an overpayment. I think we'll look at this contract in a couple of years and say, yikes. I do believe he went through like a 28, 30 game span in a row where he could not score a goal. He was really strong in the playoffs. He's been good in the playoffs over the past couple of years, but let's be honest, and players who he's played with, he's really been a staple next to Nikita Kucherov and Braden Point over the last couple of seasons. But like I said, the Devils got some nice young players and he'll fit in there. They certainly had a lot of money to spend. I'm sure they're a little sour that they didn't get Johnny Hockey. Andre Burakovsky, a little bit of an overpayment as well, but Seattle needs offensive players. I really like this move. Mason Marchment, who's basically a point per game guy last year with the Florida Panthers and not playing a lot on the power play and not really playing a lot of his 5-on-5 hockey with Alexander Barkov or Jonathan Huberdeau. Dallas really needs some offense. Last year, they were a one-line team with Joe Pavelski and Robertson and Rupe Hintz. So you get some, secondary scoring. You can play alongside Tyler Seguin, Jamie Benn, give him a little bit more offensive firepower. He's a really good player. I was hoping the Habs would get him on the cheap. Didn't happen. Kemper in Washington, Jack Campbell in Edmonton, and Ilya Samsonov in Toronto. Of course, a few days ago, the Maple Leafs acquire Matt Murray. So they're going to roll with Samsonov and they're going to roll with Murray between the pipes. I mean, I don't love the Murray call. I'm not going to get into that too much. I already said I didn't really like it at the time when the Senators acquired him or when they signed him. And now it's his health. Like, he has won a couple Game 7s, which is great, right? Not a lot of players in the current Leaf squad have won any Game 7s, and he's won a couple cups. And it's a good 1-2 punch. I think the Samsonov signing is pretty solid. I think it's cheap. I believe it's 1.8, a good buy low. He's just a few years removed from being a first-round pick. He's still young, so there's some upside there. I do believe he will be the guy to roster. I think, if everybody's healthy in Toronto, those two goalies, Matt Murray probably starts the season up in Montreal against the Canadiens when the NHL season opens up. But I believe it'll probably be a little bit of a back and forth, and maybe Samsonov can steal that net as well. One more time, Tyler. Sorry, just for that board. Gaudreau was phenomenal last year, of course, with Florida and with the Philadelphia Flyers. My goodness, he's going to be. I mean, the top six in Ottawa looks great with Batherson and Stützle and Josh Norris and Brady Tkachuk, and he's going to be on that top power play unit. The Sens are on the rise. They're going to score some goals. They're competitive. I don't think they're there yet for a playoff squad, but not bad. Perron's value probably doesn't change all that much. He leaves a couple of really good players in St. Louis, maybe a bit of a downtick, but, you put him alongside potentially Dylan Larkin, and away you go. Andrew Kopp, I think his value probably stays the same. He's playing some really good players in Winnipeg and New York. Maybe a slight downtick, but he's certainly probably going to, have the most ice time he's ever had in his career. I'd say that. Trocheck value doesn't really change. Next to Panarin, I guess, maybe slight uptick. Strome, Vatrano, not so much. Palat, probably a bit of a downtick there. Maybe stays equal. He's one of those guys in banger leagues you can roll with. Everybody else, I don't think there's value change there. Kemper's fine. He leaves Colorado, go to Washington. I think he was in a much better spot. Campbell in Edmonton, I don't think he's truly the answer either, but, a good team. He could probably rack up some wins. He's certainly going to be the number one goalie there. Let's switch over to some trades, because there were some big trades, as I mentioned, in the block. And, man, Max Pacioretty, my goodness. Some big splashes here by the Carolina Hurricanes. I mentioned they lost Trocheck, but they acquire Max Pacioretty. He's a former 40-goal scorer, multiple 30-goal campaigns. He's going to be on that top line on the first power play. He's going to play with Sebastian Aho. He's going to be on that first PP. Brent Burns going to be on that first PP. I love this. I love the Burns addition. San Jose has some really good players as well, and Burns is nowhere near the player he was, 3-4 years ago when he was the first defenseman off the board in fantasy hockey leagues. But, last year, Tony DeAngelo had a really good campaign, especially on that power play with the Hurricanes. Now he's going to be Brent Burns on that power play, logging 26 minutes a night. Carolina's defense is awesome. They got Coughlin in there as well. Cam Talbot, mentioned him. It's going to be a really good 1-2 punch there in Ottawa. I really like Cam Talbot overall as a goalie. Eric Halla and Zaka switched deals is like a 1-for-1 trade, and Connor Brown with Ottawa just bolstering their top six. I didn't even mention DeBrincat when I mentioned Claude Giroux. Like, oh my goodness, like that power play might be one of the better ones in the entire league. At DeBrincat and Brady Tkachuk and Chabot and Claude Giroux setting it up, and Josh Norris in there and Drake Batherson. But yeah, it's a good get, I think, from Washington just to get another player inside their top 6 where Ottawa didn't really have a lot of use for them. So my big winners: Ottawa, Detroit, Carolina. The Hurricanes are currently 13-1 over at Caesars to win the Stanley Cup. They were 15-1 before the moves yesterday. Over at PointsBet, they're 9-1. FanDuel, they're 10-1. DK's got them at 12-1. BetMGM has them at 12-1. So the best possible odds over at Caesars. Use our free prop shop parlay calculator to get the best possible odds. And I think big losers for me would be Vegas, right? Just to lose Pacioretty for nothing, to lose Marc-Andre Fleury a couple years ago for nothing, and then, the big haul that they had for Eichel and losing Alex Tuch. I mean, they've really lost that deal. They traded Nick Suzuki, Thomas Tatar, and a second-round pick. And you remember they acquired a first, a second, and a third for Thomas Tatar a couple years ago, and they didn't even play him. So just tough go, man. Vegas has gotten rid of a lot of their prospects and a lot of their picks. Of course, they just had so much success early on, and now I just don't know. I wonder. Last year, how things went in Seattle is usually how things should go for expansion squads. And you can go look back at the Sharks in the early 90s. They were awful. It took a lot of years for them to get going. Vegas got pretty successful. I think they're one of those teams that they probably won't have any issues signing players through free agency because it's Vegas. It's awesome. Who doesn't want to go play in Vegas? The tax thing there too as well. And they'll probably, they got Eichel there who's appealing, and Mark Stone who's appealing, and Theodore. So they do have some nice pieces, but man, they're still strapped. They're still strapped for sure. Enough hockey talk for now. I still can't believe Gaudreau went to the Blue Jackets, but good on him. When he scores goals at home, he's going to be able to hear the cannon. We'll break, and we'll talk some football next year on Mean Streets. Welcome back in. Let's switch gears and talk a little football. In the next block, we're going to look at round 8 of NFFC drafts. I got a target in there for you. Just want to present some players that are going in around that range. It's actually a lot of quarterbacks: Matthew Stafford, Trey Lance, Aaron Rodgers in there, and then a couple interesting running backs and some wideouts as well. And we're going to preview the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here. But I just want to recap the first few rounds of the Scott Fish Bowl. This got underway on Monday. Only made a couple picks yesterday. We started off really strong. It is a slow draft for a reason, so you got to be patient. It's all good there. But you see here, I am absolutely stacking some squads here. We got the Denver Broncos and we have the Philadelphia Eagles. So we started off with Hurts and Russell Wilson. It came, there was a reversal. So after it finished round 2, we got back in here to the start of round 3 with DeAndre Swift. And then by the time it came back around, A.J. Brown to kind of pair up with Jalen Hurts. Akers, who I do believe is a true bell cow back here in this Los Angeles Rams offense. I don't really believe in Darrell Henderson. And I know that he wasn't super efficient last year when he came back from the Achilles injury, which is surprising in its own right for him to come back, suffer before the season started and come back before the season ended. But I think it was very, very telling for me that he just got a lot of the touches and a lot of the opportunity in LA. And he went up against really tough run defenses. I mean, San Fran twice, I believe, the Bucs and the Bengals in the Super Bowl. All those teams were inside the top 10 in terms of stopping the run. They were really strong run defenses. So take the efficiency with a grain of salt. And I think the biggest takeaway is that Sean McVay was willing to give him a lot of the touches. So I think I got myself, Detroit's on the rise. Swift, I think our guy Tyler really likes Swift here. Producer Tyler, we had some Swift stats earlier in the week when we previewed the Detroit Lions and how he was a top 5 running back at the time of the injury, averaging 18 fantasy points per game. Right there with Leonard Fournette in terms of targets and catches per game. He was really used out of the backfield. I think the offense is a little bit better too. You bring in DJ Chark and Jameson Williams, and then Jared Goff, say what you want, but I think he's capable of being okay for the Detroit Lions. Kind of like him overall. I was actually a little bit bummed. He went as quarterback 27 to round 9. I was thinking about Jared Goff in round 9 when I went Edwards-Helaire and then Devontae Smith to kind of pair up with Jalen Hurts again. But I think the biggest thing here for me is I was back and forth. Like, which guy do I take? Courtland Sutton? Do I take Jerry Jeudy? Heck, I'll just take them both because this format really does. You just have to kind of think outside the box, be a little bit different. Stacks are very important. Surprised you took Sutton and Jeudy. So, Brent, just want to hammer home the rules of the Scott Fish Bowl. I agree. In a redraft, don't do it. You don't want to do that. You don't want to take two guys from the same team. Really, it kind of caps your upside a little bit from a redraft standpoint. I don't want to confuse people here a little bit. I don't want to confuse anyone. So, Brett, this is a super flex. This is points awarded for completions for quarterbacks. Jalen Hurts maybe doesn't fit that bill so much, but certainly Russell Wilson's been one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the league. You want to shoot for upside. You want to have stacks because it's not going to happen all the time, but think about that division and think about the high-scoring games. I'm thinking that the totals are probably going to be all around 50. You're going to be some shootouts. And when Russell Wilson has that game where he throws 4 touchdowns, when those games where he's like 20 for 24 with 4 touchdowns and Sutton gets 2 and maybe Jeudy gets 2 and Russell Wilson throws for 4, that's like 50, 60 points right there. So you try to think outside the box. You try to stack a little bit. I would never do that in a redraft league. I would choose one or the other and move on. I don't like to have, and it's not even in the end of the world in a standard redraft with 12 teams to go, Russell Wilson and Sutton, one of those two. You don't need to have a wide receiver with them, but I'm starting to come around to that a little bit more in redraft as long as you have one guy. I don't really like to have a running back with my quarterback. It kind of caps my upside a little bit. If my running back's getting those touchdowns inside the 20, then my quarterback's not throwing them. But here in this situation, you're shooting for upside. You're shooting for maximum potential. So that's why I went that way. If I had a choice between one or the other, it would be Sutton. I do believe Sutton has a higher ceiling than Jeudy. Jeudy hasn't done a whole lot here in the NFL. Some of that has been the quarterback play, but Sutton is the deep threat guy in this offense. He has the higher ADOT. Russell Wilson has one of the best deep balls that we've ever seen in the NFL, especially since he entered the league in about 10 years ago. So I think there's, if I'm choosing between the two, it's Sutton. I probably won't target Tim Patrick. When I drafted Russ Wilson, I was thinking I would get one of Sutton or Jeudy and then maybe Tim Patrick, maybe Albert O, big tight end in there because I'm kind of hurting at the tight end position. You see a lot of tight ends off the board. It's tight end premium. You get an extra half point for a tight end catch. You get extra half point for a tight end, first down. So that's why I went with that stack, Brett. I think if you see a lot of teams across the industry here, there's a lot of stacks. And I think I see a lot of stacks as well on this squad. Just let me zoom in here and get things on the go. So I think I saw like a Joe Burrow Higgins. So let's just roll through these teams pretty quickly here. So over on the left, we got Fan Ray in there. And I won't try to pronounce last names. I'm brutal at them. So, Josh Allen, Gabe Davis, right? That's a pretty nice stack there. Tua Tagovailoa, no stack, but it's not the end of the world in there. James Conner, Najee Harris, Tony Pollard in there. We got Isaac in here with team number 2. Not really seeing a stack. I like the value on Melvin Gordon in the 10th, right? I mean, we talked about his numbers being very, very similar to Javonte Williams last season. Some upside there with him and that pick. Travis Etienne, I love that pick as well. He's got himself a top 5 tight end and Darren Waller. And then he's got the Carr Waller stack in there. We got team number 3 here, JBW Fantasy Football, Nathan Groot. We got Justin Herbert. So you see all the quarterbacks off the board in a super flex league. I like the 1-2 punch there, and Cook and Jones. Breece Hall, so some really good running backs in there. Value and Pitt. I love those wideouts. The value, we've been talking about those guys quite a bit on this show. Pittman, Bateman, and Thielen. Love all 3 of those guys. And then we go to Kyler Murray and Trey Lance is a nice 1-2 punch at the quarterback position. And then we have Zach Ertz paired up with Kyler. And, potentially maybe he's looking at Rondell Moore a little bit later on. I don't know. Just kind of speculating, of course. Michael Carter. Singletary, Davis Mills, no Cooks in there, but maybe Nico Collins a little bit later on. We got Jason Graham here with Patrick Mahomes. The Henry Fournette 1-2 punch at the back. So he goes 2 quarterbacks in the first 4. Dallas Goedert, which I'd like to have maybe over Devontae Smith, but obviously it just didn't work out that way. Like these wide receivers, Allen Robinson, Christian Kirk. So he's got Kirk with Trevor Lawrence. So nice, not bad, right? Maybe a little bit later on, he's thinking about somebody else inside the Jacksonville offense, maybe an Ingram towards the end of the draft, tight end 20-ish or so to get a little bit of a Jacksonville stack in there. We got Anthony here, Tom Brady, Justin Fields, and then Eckler, Montgomery. So that's the quarterback, running back. It's not the end of the world. If Fields tosses a couple touchdowns to Montgomery, where you go, but you could get in trouble there with Fields running it in and not giving it to Montgomery. But I do like both players quite a bit. Justin Fields ran a lot towards the end of the season, and the coaching change, they'll play to his strengths this season. There's no question about that. Baker Mayfield in here. Does he got a Carolina? No. Maybe he's thinking about a little bit later on. Maybe he's thinking about Robbie Anderson or Terrace Marshall. The quarterback run here. I really like this team. True North Fantasy Football. Shout out to Joe Jackson and Stafford stack, and Barkley and Kamara could both be top 5 running backs. Zeke, good value there on Zeke. Honestly, people are all over Zeke, but he still had 1,000 yards, double-digit touchdowns, still finished his RB6 fantasy point per game, and he played through an injury. Pollard's on the rise, but there's no question Zeke is still a big player inside this offense, especially inside the red zone. Team 7, real bad. The one I'm going over now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, Jackson. I don't think it's that bad. I don't think it's that bad at all. Michael Thomas is wide receiver 35. I mean, he could be a game changer. I'm not in on Thomas, but at that point, wide receiver 35, I mean, goodness, we haven't seen him play in 2 years. Mike Williams, Darnell Mooney, I like those wide receivers. I think I would have maybe targeted a wide receiver after Kamara and get, an alpha in there if you could. But, man, those backs could pay off. Good quarterbacks in there as well. CMC, Jefferson, Adams, so 2 alpha wideouts in there. Mac Jones, not digging Mac Jones too much as quarterback 1. So the quarterback play here is not ideal for Todd, but he's arguably got the best player in football in CMC and Justin Jefferson, and Adams is really good 1-2 punch. Godwin and Metcalf, who knows, right? Upside is definitely there. I like Chase Edmonds a little bit. It's a crowded backfield in Miami. Nick, I like to start here. We mentioned Joe Burrow and T. Higgins. He's got Mike Evans in there. So he's got a bit of a Cincy stack, Mixon could maybe catch a couple balls out of the backfield for touchdowns. Cooks is a, good value at wide receiver 24. He's got Cole Kmet. Darn, I wanted Cole Kmet. So that just happened right before me. I'm a big Cole Kmet fan here. And then we got Lindsey and Travis Kelce. Good start. Travis Kelce, 10 M premium. Got one of the better ones in the game. Aaron Rodgers there. Got Jamar Chase, Nick Chubb, Tyreek Hill, Gibson, Ryan Tannehill, Cooper. So just kind of taking some value, right? What the board is giving to Lindsey with Amari Cooper as wide receiver 34. And there's some reports that maybe Deshaun Watson will only be suspended for 4 to 6 games. I don't really know what to do with Amari Cooper. It's a cold weather city for the first time. He played in Oakland, and he played in a dome in Dallas. He's kind of had some soft tissue stuff. He hasn't really missed a lot of games. I feel like he's always questionable, but at wide receiver 34, I think that's terrific value, Lindsey. And if, Deshaun Watson plays 10 games this year, Cooper's going to be a low-end wide receiver 1, at least a rock-solid wide receiver 2, even in a run-first offense. Mike goes Dak, Kupp, Cousins. We got Williams in there. Javante's RB15. I don't hate that. I just don't like him going as RB10. Schultz is a great tight end, especially, in this format. Jameson, we got Jameis Winston in there as well. And then, Najee Harris and Mitchell. So, yeah, I'm stacking. My team's a little bit different. Joshua likes it. Appreciate you. It is a little different, right? I think you just have to think outside the box when it comes to this. I'll be honest, like Philly is, I don't think you can see the Eagles banner. I'm a little bit of a... I follow the team closely. I didn't go in thinking I would do that, but I really don't mind Hurts. Overall, from a standard, not talking best ball, redraft with your buddies, 10 teams, 12 teams, the only Eagles player I like is Jalen Hurts. I think AJ's going a little bit early. I think Smith, there can be some inconsistency. Goddard, maybe the third option in that tight end. I would just kind of pass on Goddard. Miles Sanders, no touchdowns. I don't mind him if it's round 10 as like your third or fourth running back, especially if you hammer wide receivers from round 3 to 8. That's it. I'm only really in on Jalen Hurts. His QB6 overall last year from a fantasy point per game standpoint, led all quarterbacks in rushing yards and touchdowns. If those rushing yards come down and rushing touchdowns come down, it's probably because he throws a few more touchdowns to having an alpha in A.J. Brown. But stacking Philly and stacking Denver, and that's probably it for me. I may think about a tight end. I may just go right back to the board with wide receivers. I'm probably done for running backs a little bit. I'll probably shoot for upside. Clyde Edwards-Helaire was on my board. I didn't really touch on him. I think it's okay for where he went. Tyler, can we check it out one more time? Where did he go overall in terms of running backs? In the 30s? What do we have? 31? I think that's okay. Maybe he can catch more balls to the backfield. He's not been efficient inside the red zone. His biggest red zone game came, I think, his first NFL game ever. There's a lot of hype when the Chiefs drafted him. Do you remember all the talk in Dynasty? It was 101, even though in hindsight we can look back, it'd be Jonathan Taylor. Last time this year, I think we were talking about maybe Cam Akers as 101, and then Taylor broke out, DeAndre Swift. It was a really nice running back class. There was some comparisons. Oh my goodness, Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Andy Reid's offense is going to be Brian Westbrook. Like the disrespect. Brian Westbrook was great. Hall of Famer, I think. Unbelievable seasons. Fantasy seasons, he was fantastic. But we just haven't seen the abilities from Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We haven't seen it. He hasn't been great inside the red zone, but no Darrell Williams. So maybe he can catch a few more balls into the backfield, but they did bring back Jerick McKinnon, which is not ideal. And it's not ideal. There you go. McKinnon seems like a far better value than CEH. I don't know about far better, but he is a value. He is going to be the third down guy. That's exciting. He's a good running back when he's healthy. He was good last year in moments, especially when CEH went down. It's the Andy Reid offense. It's a high-powered offense. Going to be in some shootouts. Mahomes is good. No Tyreek Hill. Maybe more catches out of the backfield potentially. Just maybe. I know they brought in Juju and MVS as well, and then they drafted Sky Moore. So there's a lot of pieces there. CH, I think, is okay value outside the top 30. He's not a strong target of mine. We do got to get out of here. We got to get to some other stuff. We'll talk about round 8 of NFFC drafts. I got some MLB picks for you, and we got some Bucs talk coming up as well. Keep it locked. want to bring up some of the comments there from everybody. Just want you guys to be part of the show as well. I do like the call from Joshua Frick about McKinnon. Seems like a good value, right? I mentioned him in the last block, catching balls out of the backfield. I think, the bringing him back certainly does hurt CEH a little bit. If you're hoping that he could be a bell cow and catch some balls out of the backfield, it kind of hurts him. Third down, I don't expect him to get a lot of play, but he's still a good back. Let's see if he can stay healthy. Before that injury happened, he was starting to get into a bit of a groove. Mark Carr says he likes the value of Ronald Jones. I just looked, RB43. I'm not a huge fan. I'm not a huge fan of Ronald Jones. That's kind of why I liked CEH a couple weeks ago is, we know that there's issues with CEH catching, but we certainly know that there's issues with Ronald Jones catching the football as well. I think it's okay for where he's going as RB43 in high stakes leagues over the last 5-6 weeks. In around that range, Michael Carter, Ramondre Stevenson's RB38, so a little bit earlier than that. Carter's 39. Isaiah Spiller, RB40, I think that's okay. Eckler's been on record saying that he's wanted the Chargers to draft some running backs, and they have done that over the past couple of years. It's not great ones like Roundtree, and then this past year in Isaiah Spiller. Maybe he could take a couple touches, keep Eckler fresh. I think he's certainly worth a sprinkle. Alexander Mattison. So you're really just shooting for backups. Like, Carter would need something to happen to Breece Hall. I think his role is I think he's just kind of like a third down role. Isaiah Spiller, maybe similar. Alexander Mattison, you're really just like, we've seen him before when there's no Cook, and Cook hasn't had a full season in his NFL career yet. So we could see like Mattison again have a, step in for Cook when he's hurt. When he steps in, he's certainly an RB1, but it's just like a handcuff. Damian Pierce, I like that. I would think I would rather take the shot car on Pierce, like in around that range, as a guy who could be in for a lot of work in Houston. Marlon Mack there, not Burkhead. There's not a lot of, appealing pieces in Houston. Ronald Jones, and then Rachaad White, who I think is a really good handcuff and could be, for me, as a guy like Leonard Fournette, I really want White, and we'll get into him a little bit more, and Nyheim Hines and Darrell Henderson. So out of all those guys, I think Jones is okay, but I think I take my shot on like Spiller, Madison, and Pearson there. Speaking of NFFC, high stakes leagues, here's a look at all the players on average over the last 5 weeks going in round 8. So a couple appealing names here. Russell Gage, we'll talk about him in the next block. Matthew Stafford, Tony Pollard, Drake London, Rashad Penny, Dallas Goedert, Kareem Hunt, Tyler Lockett, Christian Kirk, Aaron Rodgers, Brendan Ayuk, and Trey Lance. So I asked yesterday on Twitter, just everybody's kind of favorite target in around this range. Who do they like? Who they willing to take? And Joshua brought up a good point. It does depend. You have to have a little context here. How did your draft start off? Did you go running backs? And if you went running backs, you're probably not taking a shot on Tony Pollard, Rashad Penny. But those were the two guys that were mentioned the most to me. Tony Pollard and Rashad Penny, who was a league winner for a lot of people. Then they drafted Kenneth Walker. Penny's just never really been able to stay healthy, and it's on a bottom 5 team, maybe the worst team in football offensively, unless they get Jimmy G, and I don't know how much of an upgrade that is. But Geno Smith and Drew Lock, it's going to be hard for them to move the ball. The offensive line is not great. I like what Penny showed us last year, but it's very telling that they brought back Kenneth Walker. I think it's more telling that Chris Carson's really not going to be a part of this team, or maybe in the NFL anymore, unfortunately, due to a couple injuries. Penny, I think it's okay value. I think I would rather have Tony Pollard. I think they can use him in the slot, line him up all over the field a little bit, especially with Amari Cooper no longer on the squad. It sounds like Michael Gallup is going to start on the PUP list, and James Washington, I think he's already hurt. So Pollard, I like. Stafford, I think, is okay as well. I really like Stafford. Think about year 2 inside this offense with Sean McVay and Cooper Kupp. It's scary to think that they could be better offensively. You can bring in Allen Robinson, I love Robert Woods, but Allen Robinson, I think, has a little bit more to offer than Matthew Stafford. Plus you have Cam Akers healthy for the entire season too, hopefully, and then maybe a little bit more efficient on offense overall as a team, and it's just a brutal NFC conference. So I do like the Matthew Stafford call. Goddard's a pass for me, just too much going on, run first offense. I mentioned the last block, I do like Hurts. I don't really love all the other weapons. I shot for upside in the Scott Fish Bowl. Kareem Hunt, I'm not into. Tyler Lockett, not into because the quarterback play. Christian Kirk, I think, is okay. I'd rather just, if I'm looking, Zay Jones at the very end of drafts, potentially. Mentioned him the other day as a sleeper. Aaron Rodgers, I'm just not into. I know somebody tweeted, just keep it simple, Aaron Rodgers. Why? No Devontae Adams, going to be a run first offense. Aaron Jones going to catch a lot of balls. Alan Lazard, I'm into. But other than that, there's a lot of question marks with this Green Bay offense, and I don't think we'll see Aaron Rodgers return value. He finished last year as quarterback 6 in points per game with Jalen Hurts. Ayuk, I think, could be Trey Lance's guy, but I'm into Trey Lance as we transition here. This is my target. I mentioned Jalen Hurts. I think Trey Lance could have a season very similar to Jalen Hurts last year. Flirt with 3,500 yards. have 600 plus rushing yards, have maybe 5 or 6 rushing touchdowns. We only saw him start 2 games last year. And you see the note on the right, he had 120 rushing yards and 33 fantasy points in those 2 games. Now, and it's a very small sample, but if we times that, say the fantasy points, and we average that out to 17 games, this guy's finishing around 280 fantasy points, would be around QB 8. He's going as QB 13. I have him as quarterback 12. I would rather have him than Dak Prescott. I'd rather have him than Aaron Rodgers. I would rather have Stafford and Russell Wilson. Those two are on my radar. I don't like to take a quarterback early, so I'm kind of in this range. I probably pass and maybe waited out a little bit on Trey Lance. I was a year too early. I was all over Trey Lance last year. I wanted him everywhere. We just didn't get to see him start. Jimmy Garoppolo is still in the squad. They couldn't trade him due to an injury, but Trey Lance, there's going to be some inconsistencies for sure, just like Jalen Hurts. Didn't toss a lot of touchdowns last year. Got a cannon of an arm, not going to be super accurate, but the offense is great. The line is good. He's got so many playmakers there. And Debo, who I don't think is going to run as much with Trey Lance. You got George Kittle's a yak monster. Brendan Ayuk is a yak monster as well. So Trey Lance, I think, could be a league winner this year, just like Jalen Hurts was a league winner for people last season. And it is all about the rushing upside for me in Trey Lance. And I do like Shanahan overall as a pass caller. We're going to break, and Rangers got Ryan Carpenter. Okay. Doesn't really move the needle for me, but not bad. We're going to break. We're going to talk about the Bucs. We'll wrap up with some MLB picks. Keep it locked. Went a little long in the Scott Fishbowl, so I'm just going to rapid fire through some Bucs stuff. There's really not a lot to talk about. This team is absolutely amazing, and all their weapons are fantastic. But let's take a look at them overall. I gave extra odds here because I do believe that they could be the number 1 overall seed. The AFC is just so stacked. In the NFC, there's the Bucs, and then there's the Rams. And I guess you could make a case for the Cowboys and the Packers if you want to. The win total is 11.5. They won 13 games last year. I see them winning 12 or 13 again this year. They're minus 286 to win the division. So they're the biggest favorites to win a division since we've started previewing teams here. They're plus 333 to win the NFC. To have the best record in the NFL, they're 5-1, I think is appealing as well. And I think they're really good odds here to win the Super Bowl at plus 750. I really do. The squad is still very, very strong. Defensively, they're good. They can get after the quarterback. They got playmakers in the secondary. Tom Brady's back again. 13-4. The only tough games I see on their schedule, Dallas to start the season, which they started last year against Dallas, and they almost lost that game. They ended up winning it. Green Bay, Kansas City, the Rams, Baltimore, and Cincinnati. That's it. That's all I really see as tough games on their schedule. Using the prop shop, I see a couple different win totals here for the Bucs. You can get over 11.5 at plus 100. Other spots have at minus 110. You can get over 12.5 at plus 205, which I think is pretty appealing as well. As we switch over to some of their weapons, offensively, Tom Brady last year led everybody in passing attempts and passing yards and passing touchdowns. He's going as quarterback 8 despite finishing as quarterback 3 last year in fantasy. I think pretty good value for Tom Brady. The thing that we like about the Bucs is it's like pedal to the metal. Nobody really threw more than them in terms of like splits tools that we have over at FTN Daily, FTN Fantasy, pace of play. They played up tempo. They were always passing. No matter if they were up 20 to 30, they were always passing. And that's great for Tom Brady. It's great for Mike Evans, who finishes a top 10 wide receiver, who's had 1,000 yards in every single season of his career. When he entered in 2014, 14 touchdowns last year, 13 touchdowns the year before. That's 27 touchdowns in his last 2 years. He's finished with at least 10 touchdowns in 4 seasons and at least 8 touchdowns in 6 of his 8 seasons. He's just consistent. Chris Godwin going to miss a little bit of time on the pup list, but we're getting value because of that. Russell Gage, more on him in a little bit, and Cameron Brate. Let's actually talk Brate just for a second here. Tight end 25 over the last 4 weeks of NFFC drafts. Look at the red zone target usage. Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Cameron Brate. He was the backup tight end last year to Rob Gronkowski. Do not forget about Cameron Brate. You can probably get him with your last pick. Bucs missed the playoffs. No chance, Prince. A lot would have to go wrong for the Buccaneers to miss the playoffs. I would assume it would have to be a Tom Brady injury. There's no chance this team misses the playoffs in that weak NFC conference. Let's go back over to some of their weapons here. Russell Gage is somebody I wanted to talk about quickly here. So wide receiver 38 last year, wide receiver 37 in a full point PPR points per game standpoint. 11.6 points is what he got. He really broke out in 2020. He had 72 grabs, 786 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Last year, he had 66 grabs, 770 yards, and 4 touchdowns. That was through 14 games. Now he's going to an offense where I do believe Brady is good enough, considering how this offense rolls, to be the guy to support 3 or 4 weapons. Leonard Fournette, Evans, Godwin, and Gage. I don't mind where Gage is going. I think he makes for a high upside wide receiver 3 in this offense. And then for Leonard Fournette, I'm in on him. Number 3 in catches among running backs, 3rd in targets, 4th in receiving yards, 1st overall in targets and catches per game among backs last year. He played 14 games. Good offense, red zone guy. Has a history of getting hurt, suffering injuries. That's why I feel like for White, it's a pretty good pick for you as RB45, just to kind of handcuff and get the Buccaneers backfield, because this team will beat up on some very, very weak teams in the NFC. I got them for 13 W's. I got them for 13 wins, and I think they could be the best team in the NFC, but I do like the Rams a little bit more. Okay, we got some MLB picks to round up Mean Streets. Don't go anywhere. few MLB picks to round out Mean Streets. I'm going to start here with Framber Valdez of the Houston Astros, a matchup here against the Los Angeles Angels. Valdez only has 96 strikeouts in 109 innings. That's a 7.93 K per nine, but he racked up 13 strikeouts against the Halos on July 30. He has 22 punchouts in 17 innings against them this season. The Angels rank first in strikeout percentage at 26.5%, 11th in swinging strike percentage. They have the fourth highest K rate and the fifth lowest WOBA against lefties this season. Finally, they're also striking out a league-high 29.3% over the last month. So give me Framber Valdez, plus 112 over at BetRivers, plus 110 over at DraftKings. A few other plays that I have here for today can be all found over at our FTN Bet Tracker. The Angels have a league worst 12-32 record since May 25th, so we're picking on them a little bit here. I got the Astros to win on the run line. I got Jose Altuve, who's rocking a .313 average against lefties. He's got 14 extra base hits and a team-high 7 homers against southpaws up against Reed Detmers, who's issued 22 walks in 64 innings. He's got a 3.09 walks per nine. He's allowed at least 2 free passes in 4 of his past 5 games and 11 walks over that span. Tristan McKenzie, hit or miss. Couple walks kind of getting his way, and the fly ball rate, home runs kind of getting his way as well. But he's at home against Detroit, a really good matchup here. His numbers at home, his splits are really, really strong. Opponents are slashing 184, 276, and 359 with a 283 WOBA against him. A solid 3.68 ERA at home. He faced Detroit earlier this season. He had 8 punchouts and 7 2/3, and the Tigers have the 6th highest strikeout rate, 24% against righties. And then I got Nestor Cortes in there as well, much better at home. Also, the Reds striking out 23.5% against lefties, and Cortes at home, 40 innings, 2.01 ERA. Opponents are slashing 168, 242, and 287. So I think he can get to 6 punchouts, Nestor Cortes. Other than that, you're on your own. Good luck. We'll see you tomorrow. Cheers.